Let's talk about crosscut saws. We now have two. We have our joinery crosscut saw that we've been making for about 9 years, and we have our new one that we just introduced called our bench crosscut. I'll show you the difference. It comes in the cardboard box. The joinery crosscut saw is the exact same frame size as our dovetail saw. Same handle, same depth of cut, same thickness of blade, same length. To show you or to compare, this is our new bench crosscut. Now, the joinery crosscut blade is 10 inches with an 1 5/8 inch depth of cut. The blade is 20 thousandths of an inch thick. The bench crosscut is 11 inches long with 2 inches depth of cut, and because of the larger size, we went up to a 25 thou saw plate. Teeth are 13 teeth per inch versus 15, but the set is the same, just 2 thousandths or thickness of half the thickness of a piece of writing paper per side. Makes for a very, very smooth cut, and the idea is to be able to join directly from the saw. And we'll do a separate video on this one. I want to focus primarily on the joinery crosscut. The idea behind this saw is to be able to assemble your joints or get to a point where you can assemble your joint right from the saw. If you were cutting a mortise and tenon joint, on the tenon portion, you'd be able to make this cut with a crosscut saw and not have to come in with a chisel or a shoulder plane after the fact. Those are fine if you've got to correct an error, but ideally you get to a point where you can do it right from the saw. Very efficient. Now, the saw is heavy, as I mentioned. You have options on the handle. This is the standard one. We call it ebony resin. It is a composite, very dense. You can get what we call a bone resin, which actually is about 15% heavier than the ebony resin. You can also get a handle in white oak. This is unfinished. And you can upgrade even further to something we call fiddleback maple. This is in its unfinished state as well, but you can still see the figure. Gorgeous when they're done and polished. Now, this handle is designed for my hand. I wear a large size glove. Most people will find it very comfortable. In fact, your hand could even be a little bit bigger than mine and it would still be comfortable. However, if you had a really large hand, we make an extra large handle, custom orders. And I'll show you the difference if you put the two beside each other. You see how much bigger it is. So it really will accommodate a really large hand. Okay, so why the saw? Well, as I mentioned, if you're cutting a mortise and tenon joint, you want to get to a point where you can come in on your bench hook and make that long crosscut saw nice and clean and be able to join right to it. Now, I'm going to do the top part. I'm going to do this in the vise because it's a little too tall for the bench hook. I'll show you what I mean, and then I'll give you a quick little demonstration on how it works, meaning how that tooth reacts differently than a rip tooth. Come in here about 3/4 of an inch. Make the cut. Now I'm just going to knock that piece off with a chisel and a mallet. Now you'd come in with your second piece of wood, and that should join up against that, give you a nice, tight, clean fit. Okay? And if you feel that, it's really smooth. Why is it smooth? Because the teeth, which are diamond cut, so there's no deforming of the saw plate, are only poking out on either side, literally a half the thickness of a sheet of paper, 2 thousandths of an inch. So they don't do a lot of raking on the side of the kerf, or in this case, on that shoulder, which would leave a real mess. Now, in case you don't understand how that works, let me show you something. I've got a mortise chisel here, and I've got a striking knife. So a mortise chisel really represents well a rip tooth, something you find in a tenon saw or in a dovetail saw. If you try to use that, get it here in the vise. If you try to use that tooth on a crosscut, you get this kind of an effect. Not very clean. However, when you rip with it, you get this kind of effect. Nice clean cut. So the tooth on a crosscut is 3-sided. You've got the back and you've got the 2 sides. And that will come across the grain and give you a very clean cut. Now there's a tooth on either side. So one severs one side, one severs the other, and then the pieces in between crumble and you get a nice clean surface. That's the reason why you want to have a crosscut saw for doing specific crosscuts. We make them right here. We've been making them for about 9 years. Started shortly after we started making our dovetail saws. We test every one, so we guarantee they're going to come to you in a good working condition. If you want to get your joinery to the point where you're very efficient and you can do it right from the saw which ideally is the way you want to be able to do it. Order the saw and get to work. It's sitting there waiting for you. You can do it if you have the right tools. It makes it so much easier. We'll be happy to send you one.